Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we're going over my choices for support builds in 0.9 due to popular request. Thankfully, during the Crash the Server party, I was able to test a bunch of different setups, so I am able to bring you these today because of that. Now, of course, this was from the event, so there might be some numerical changes between now and patch day, so if some of this info is a little not correct, that's probably why. A lot of people were asking me, are there any builds I could play in a duo? Or what builds can I use to be a support character? So this is going to be a video for you guys. Links to the builds in this video will be down in the description as I've already made videos on all three of them. So one of the most generic supports in the game, support paladin, benefits the party immensely. Through just Javelin alone with the banner node, it means you can easily give 300% increased damage and armor to your allies that are within the AoE of the banner. Your allies can also be healed for a significant amount to the point where you almost feel immortal sometimes. You then, of course, give your entire party a flat 800 armor, a flat 28 fire damage, and another 120% increased damage from sigils alone. And these are easy to maintain since you can put them on autocast, as you aren't really spending mana on other skills, which is great. This is all on top of Holy Aura, which also gives a decent amount of attack speed, crit, increased damage, increased fire damage, increased physical, increased res as well. Like, you get a lot of free resistance. Although trying to use this to cap your resistances does mean you always have to be with the paladin at all times. Otherwise, of course, you'll have no res and you'll get, butchered. Of course, it wouldn't be fun if your allies were the only ones doing the damage. The fun part about this setup is if you go Judgment Consecrated Aura for, of course, the healing to party, you can also deal damage and not be worthless without teammates. The best thing is, thanks to most paladin builds using most of these core abilities, you can almost play any build and still be a great help to your teammates at all times. I would always go for a support paladin first in any party. This build is amazing for new players as it's a very casual playstyle, and it can also work with any party, as no party can really turn down 400% increased damage. Now, can they? This is definitely my first recommendation, and anyone should have a blast letting your teammates do all the work for you. Support Werebear is a little more niche than Paladin. It is best on spell crit setups, as you give a large staggering 55 adaptive spell damage to your teammates through Entangling Roots and Spriggan Companion. Spriggan also gives your teammates 8% base crit. This is one of the strongest support abilities in the game, as just giving a global base crit buff means your entire party can dump their crit catalysts in favor of big beefy staves, or they could just go the chonk route and use a Bastion of Honor instead. Rogues can achieve the same thing with crit vulnerability stacks, but they have to actually hit enemies, while you just give them base crit just by existing, so it's better in practice and in party play. Warcry also gives 100% increased crit chance as well. If that wasn't enough for you, it can also give an amazing 250% increased cold damage to allies. All of this setup with the adaptive flat and the increased damage works perfectly well with builds like Icicle Marksman. So if you want to be duoing, the perfect combo is an Icicle Marksman and a support Werebear, as they synergize so well together. Another strong thing about Werebear is you have access to Permataunt, a lot of crowd control from Entangling Roots, and of course, all the pull you get access from Warcry and Fury Leap. This means that you can taunt the enemy, lock the enemy in place, and also move them around. This is great for keeping squishing builds, Icicle Marksman, alive. You are also a very tanky boy. All of that global health regen from swipe and combo with all of your gear, and of course, eventually Vessel of Strife, means you will have a gigantic HP pool, which gets even larger effectively thanks to all the damage reduction you have access to, thanks to the fact you are, of course, a druid. You get to focus on tankiness since you're not in charge of doing damage. Your job is to just stand there and keep your carry alive. Support Werebear is a niche strong support setup that excels at helping caster setups like Icicle Marksman and Static Orb Sorcerer thrive and do even more damage than we ever thought possible. So it's the definitive choice for wanting to duo, support, and carry. So out of all of the builds in this video, support Necro is the most complicated. It is also the most rewarding to play. TLDR, you give your allies 60% more damage, a bunch of flat cold, and a lot of cold penetration thanks to Dread Shade and Lich's Scorn. This alone can lead to staggering amounts of DPS given to your allies. You're essentially adding 2 to 3 players worth of damage to your party by your lonesome once you invest enough, as you not only give your allies flat, you also give them penetration for that cold flat, meaning that even if they weren't doing cold damage, they sure will be doing cold damage when you're around. This is on top of having an army of minions to tank for your allies, as since you don't need to worry about DPS, it means you can focus on all of the minion survivability and your survivability, so you can end up with some very chunky minions in the end. I will warn you now though, targeting with Dreadshade is a little wonky. Multiple necromancers in the same group are a little hard to work with because multiple Dreadshade buffs do not stack. So do not play this build if you plan on starting to play with a friend who is also playing a necromancer. But if you just want to give your allies so much firepower that they can't even comprehend it, this is the build for you. You don't really start popping off though until you get a Lich's Scorn and a decent amount of intelligence. But it's definitely the build for you if you want high investment aura bot stuff dedicated to pumping out as much DPS as humanly possible. Alright guys, that was the 3 builds I would suggest to play if you want to be a support. There are a few other supports I didn't mention here, honorable mentions, like Stacks Focus Marksman, which apply max shred stacks for armor shred, max crit vulnerability stacks, so anything will auto crit no matter what. You'll also, of course, can get all the shred resistance blessings, all of that. All of that will be maxed, including shock as well, which is wonderful. So your allies don't have to worry about putting chill, slow, frailty, all of these different ailments, even doom as well if you're playing with a melee build. All of these stacks can be easily applied with a Reign of Winter marksman that is focused on, of course, applying as many stacks as humanly possible. Or, on the other hand, you could play a mana support Spellblade, as you can stack intelligence and be very tanky as a Spellblade, so you can sit there and channel focus on your allies to give them a large boost of mana regen, up to about, I think, 40 flat mana regen total per second, which means that your friend can play a lot more degenerate playstyles, like spamming meteors or spamming melee attacks or something like that. That's always wonderful as well. So those are 2 that I haven't really even gotten into yet, and I haven't made videos for, but I plan on making videos for those in the future, so I'd heavily suggest keeping a lookout for those. Don't be afraid to experiment, as the meta is not really found yet on all of these builds, as they are just simply archetypes I was able to put together in the small span of time I had during all the events. With all that being said, I'd heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as that's the best way of supporting me and showing me that you want more content like this. This has been Dread, off to work on the next build. Bye!